Why are the words "I'm sorry" so hard for some people to say? Husbands and wives can be notorious for denying wrongdoing or minimizing the hurt they've caused one another. Why is this? Well, it's usually a pride problem. Pride is very powerful. Admitting that our behaviors or our words harmed our spouse takes real humility, and humility wounds our pride. Pride is probably the biggest factor that keeps us from growing and even from God. So, a real apology has a couple of key components. First, there's an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Now, the offense may have been unintentional, like maybe your husband stepped on your foot, but it's important to own the offense. But what so often happens is an acknowledgement, but with a ton of excuses, like, sorry I stepped on your foot, but you should have seen me coming and moved your big foot. Let's take this step further into marriage. I'm sorry for watching pornography, but I'm on the road all the time. What am I supposed to do? Or, I'm sorry for watching pornography, but you never want to have sex, and at least I'm not having an affair. Isn't that good enough? How's that for an apology? No, doesn't work. There's absolutely no ownership, no taking responsibility. Just because the word sorry is in the sentence doesn't make the person truly sorry. Or how about this? I'm sorry you feel that way. Again, there's no acknowledgement of any kind of wrongdoing. It's really your problem because they're not even taking responsibility for causing you to have negative feelings or causing a rift in the relationship. It's just your problem that you feel that way and they're sorry that you feel that way. Don't be fooled. That's simply sounding sorry, using the word sorry without being really sorry for anything. Another bold way around actually making an apology is denying that the offense ever happened. So you say something like, well, here are the facts. When you walked by me just now, you stepped on my toe and that hurt. And he says, I didn't step on your toe. That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. And when that kind of pattern happens repeatedly in a relationship, especially marriage, it's called crazy making because you begin to doubt what happened. I thought he stepped on my toe hurts, but he's saying he didn't, and you start to question your own reality. The second key component to a real apology is showing care for the hurt that's been caused, along with an effort to repair the damage, to make amends. Many people are desperate for their spouse to acknowledge their own bad behavior and to show care for the hurt they've caused, and to ultimately change those ways. Some women and men will try, sometimes for years, to get their husbands or wives to apologize and repent. But hear me, if your husband hasn't apologized yet, no begging, explaining, pleading, or cajoling is going to work. So instead of spending your energy trying to get something you have no control over, spend your energy on gaining clarity for yourself. Think over the general patterns of your marriage over time, the last couple of months, the last year, the last 5 years, or 25 years. Does your spouse generally demonstrate true concern for you as a person? Yes or no? Is your spouse generally compassionate when he or she unintentionally causes harm to you or others in the family? Are there times when your spouse intentionally causes harm? Harsh words, physical abuse, reckless driving, financial mismanagement? Well, how do they handle that? And are these the kind of things that he or she denies happen? Your answers to these questions are extremely important because they not only tell you something about your spouse, they may say something about how you're interpreting your spouse's behaviors or actions. For example, if your husband is arguing about your version of events and he's denying what actually happened, or is he denying what your interpretation of what happened? For example, maybe he did step on your toe, but if you say, you stepped on my toe and I know you did it because you've been angry with me all night and you just stepped on it on purpose. Suddenly now you've decided why he did what he did. Not just that he did it, but why. And this is where in normal marriages we get into lots of trouble because we're firmly convinced that our interpretation of why they did what they did is accurate. But put the shoe on the other foot. If you forgot to do something that was important to your husband or your child, they probably would feel upset or hurt. And they want an apology. But if they added something like this, and I know you're just doing it because you're passive aggressive, and that's why you forgot, you might not be so willing to admit that part or apologize for that part if you disagree. So if your spouse shows a general pattern over the lifespan of your marriage of care and compassion toward you, but has a hard time specifically apologizing, maybe that's his own immaturity and pride at work. And for now, maybe your work is to just forbear this weakness in his character, knowing that generally he's a caring person. But for many of you, the opposite is true, and your history shows a pattern of not caring about your feelings or your well-being. And so let's look at what your next step might look like. Like I said, trying to wrangle an apology out of a spouse that doesn't want to apologize won't help you, because your problem isn't that your spouse won't apologize. Your problem is that he doesn't care, that he hurt you. He doesn't care the way you want him to, and you can't order someone to care. So what does that mean to you? Well, it may mean that instead of telling him he hurt you, or asking for an apology, You need to have a much tougher conversation about the state of your marriage and where it's going. That conversation might go something like this: I'm not happy in our relationship. I feel unheard and dismissed. I feel uncared for. When you do things that hurt me, you deny them or make it seem like I'm imagining them or they're all my fault. That's not okay with me. Not only do you do things that hurt me, you do very little to show me that you care about who I am, how I think, what's important to me, how I feel, or what I need. I'd hoped our marriage would be a loving partnership where both of us felt cherished and protected and connected, but I don't feel that way with you and haven't for some time. Does that matter to you? Tough conversations for tough relationships. But trying to squeeze an apology out of someone who doesn't care is not good for you, and it won't help your marriage. God bless.